Hey, look, I decorated using redstone. Just kidding. Let's take a look at some other uses of redstone for decoration. Usually when you're thinking of redstone, you're thinking of maybe a machine that performs a function or a farm, item collection system, something like that. But we can use redstone just for fun stuff too that doesn't really perform an actual in-game function, but just either looks good or adds in a cool factor to something. So there's going to be a world download down in the video description with all these things we're going to review, but I'm just going to show each of these and we're going to go through them briefly. Now, those of you who know me know that my channel is not really known for the deco part of Minecraft. It's not my specialty. I'm just frankly not that good at it. But I do have friends who do like to do the decoration stuff in Minecraft. They enjoy making the pretty builds, as some of them call it. And so I'm not really going to be focusing on exactly how, you would make this hallway look good. But we're going to be looking at just the redstone that revolves around these that you can incorporate as well. First up, redstone lamps as street lamps. You can, use a normal light block for this, but sometimes people like the look of that redstone lamp. So if you want to have a redstone lamp always turned on, but you don't want to see the lever or the redstone block or something like that, you can put down an item frame on top of it and then put a pressure plate there, a wooden pressure plate. Step on it, and then that is going to stay permanently depressed, so this will always be on. You also put daylight sensors on there, turn to night mode, so that when it turns to night, those will automatically turn on only at night and turn off during the day. I'm sure many of you do deco have seen pistons being used as a table where you just put some power underneath the piston under the floor, and then that makes a table with those benches. But you can also shove minecarts in those benches so that you can actually sit on them. Yes, I'll have a steak mid-rare. To do this, just get a solid block in between the stair and put down a rail where you want that stair to be for your chair. Put down the minecart on there, break your rail. Put a lever or a button on the side or the top of the piston. Press it. That's going to push the stairs into the minecart. You can then break this block and put whatever block you want there for your table. There are a few ways that you can randomize lighting using those redstone lamps. So here we have a very ominous hall, maybe if you're making a scary adventure map, something like that. These kind of flickering lights that flick randomly. We can see this one is normally on, but then flickers off. And then this one over here is off, but then sometimes flickers on. For this one, we have a dropper that's shooting items into a hopper that then puts the items right back in. And what we're doing is we're detecting the signal strength. So some of the items in here are unstackable items, which means they're going to give a signal strength of 3 when they get into here. And then the other items in here are just going to give signal strength 1 when they come in. And because we have this comparator right here only allowing it to turn on when it's signal strength 3, we can then just turn off this block right here. And we're just using any level of signal in the hopper to indicate that we're ready to shoot out another item into the hopper, and so that's the clock we're using. You can put another type of clock on here, however you want to do that. And then this is the one that is normally off. All we have is we have observers looking at a redstone ore with an armor stand on top of it. How that works is normally redstone ore is just in this normal state, but if a player steps on it, then it starts emitting a little bit of light and these particles, and an observer can actually detect when that state changes. And so we have these armor stands sitting on top of there so that once that state reverts back, it's going to go back again. And that observer will be able to detect that. So by adding on 8 observers that are looking into the ore, we can kind of increase the frequency that that's actually going to happen. See, we saw that actually flick off right there. So you may not want this where it's actually happening that often, like this is going on and off. And this gives you a nice long cycle on that. Next, maybe you've got a ruin build and you'd like to have some colored particles falling from the ceiling. You can do this with any color of concrete powder. There we can see with the yellow concrete powder, we get the yellow particles. Maybe you have a vegetable stand that you want to make it look like you've got those water mists that you have in the grocery stores coming down. You could use blue particles. This is done using the same update suppression that I have a video on my YouTube channel for the water that floats video. Basically, we need to just have an extended sticky piston holding up that gravity block that is touching a sticky block structure that is beyond push limit. So if I click on this block here, we can see there's actually 31 total blocks that are attached to it. So that won't be able to retract. And then when I retract that piston, it's not going to update the blocks around it. So that gravity block will stay, and then we can just bust out everything around it. Here we have a miniature golf course that uses ice under some moss carpets to propel the item. But then we also have a headless piston in there acting as the hull. So we have that nice little black circle in the middle of there, and then it's also functional. And because that headless piston is a partial block, we just have a hopper underneath that collects our ball for us. Right here, you can grab a screenshot of this. This is how you make an upward-facing headless piston. So we put that end crystal right on top of that obsidian, and then break out that obsidian. And then when I power this redstone dust, it's going to blow up everything and make a headless piston out of that. Now, you just need to make sure that you keep this powered. Otherwise, once it gets a block update, it's going to actually retract. Right now, since I have that redstone block there, so this piston is powered, anything I put next to it is not going to update it. And I can even put a block inside where that piston head is supposed to be. But as soon as that piston gets unpowered, its piston head is going to come back. That's why over here, we're just powering the block that's next to the piston so that we can just have a hopper underneath it. Because if we were just to put a torch right here, then that would also lock this. Next one is just an item column. You know, maybe you have a slime farm and you want to decorate it like it's a slime factory. Very simple concept here, just a dropper tower that is shooting items into a water stream. And then they fall down this where they land in a hopper line and then go back in. Here we have a light switch. And all we're doing is just using a block swapper to swap out a block that is non-light emitting with a block that is light emitting. So in this case, we did a diorite and a sea lantern because this kind of looks like the same shade. And then you turn it on and it looks like the light's turning on. And if you want some extra dramatic effect, increase the delay before it hits the next block swapper. Next is a wall fountain with some water trajectory. We can see we got some floating water here. I have the setup back here to show how this works, but again, check out that water that floats video on my YouTube channel if you want to see more about how you can do update suppressed water. But for this specific example, first we're going to break out that block, and that block. We're going to get rid of that piston, that piston, that piston. Then we're going to etch slime, 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 slime. Then we can knock out these. And then we can break out the rest of the blocks. And now we've got water that won't update unless we place a block next to it. As far as what this fountain design is, next up we have the illustrious hidden base. There are many ways to do this. We're going to go over a couple of these in this. But here we go. We have this where we have our secret key card. And we want to open a door. And there's all our treasures. The way this works is we have a filtered hopper minecart that has a secret key in it, and then other items that block it. And the way we're keeping that filled is instead of using redstone to lock that, because we need this detector rail and to go into a hopper, we then have a hopper offset to the side, and then we have blockers in there. And then our dropper is just filled up with the same item. So once you drop it on that specific spot, that hopper minecart will pick it up. It will shoot back out of this dropper. For the door itself, we're just using a tileable flying machine. So it alternates between honey blocks and slime blocks. So we can get beyond that push limit. And then when that hits a signal strength of 3, it then sets off these blocks up here, which have the note blocks attached to the flying machine. And then adds a nice delay so you have time to walk inside, and then powers these note blocks so that it pushes the machine back up and closes the door. You can also do the same thing with an interior build. So here we have this nice interior room and we want a secret entrance. And then it seals right back up and no one's the wiser. As long as you pick up your key. That looks suspicious. Next up, most people know the simple flush 2x2 piston door. So you're going to have those blocks and it looks like, oh, there's nothing there until you hit the lever and something opens. However, that lever is kind of conspicuous. So here's an example. We have a wall here and there is no lever anywhere. Till I walk out with my shovel. And now my door's open. And then I do my shovel again. Door's shut. Or I just shovel it, walk inside, hit my note block, door closes behind me. What we have in this case is we actually have this system that is sending power through this block because dirt is a solid block. So we can see that that redstone lamp is being powered by the signal going through the grass block. But as soon as we turn it into a path block, it is now a transparent block, no longer sending signal out. So first thing we do is we make sure that we retract that piston. It brings it onto this block, which putting any block on top of a path block will turn it back into a solid block so that it pushes back in place, and we open the door. And as long as this has grass next to it and some light, this will then turn back into a grass block and it'll be completely hidden. Next up, who doesn't like a good present, but what use is it if there's nothing good to it? So I'm going to come here and press this button. It's reusable. There's some circuits in place to pull those blocks out of the way and then shoot the item out of the dropper and then push those blocks back in when we push the button. And then we can refill it by just taking out this block and filling that hopper. Next, who doesn't like a nice, scary, ominous room and let's say, you know what, it's too dark in here. Let's do something when the player reads through the story. And now it's even scarier. I'm too scared. In fact, I'm going to just put that back to the way it was. This one's super easy. It's just a line of dispensers that have flint and steels in them. And they're looking at some netherrack, which will then light and burn indefinitely. And then we just have some pistons coming in just ahead of it to either remove that block or put it back in place. Open the portcullis. Okay, so that was a little wonky because it has the blocks that are coming up and we have a little bit of a long animation there, but this is working so that you can open and close it. Where we're doing that is with some triple piston extenders, so we have some triple piston extenders going up and then some triple piston extenders going down, and then our button is just pushing an observer onto our observer line to activate those. Notice on the top we're only activating it once because we don't care if these pistons are staying down. If you actually wanted to make sure that this reset fully, then you could have it signal twice. But when we reopen the door, that's going to push those blocks into place. What does that lever do? Oh, it's a useless machine. Going up. There's no elevator. This is a 2x2 flying machine elevator, and what we're doing is because this block right here doesn't have anything sticky, we're using gravity blocks. So as it pushes up, obviously it's just pushing the observer. We have nothing to worry about there. But then as it comes back down, the gravity block falls along with the flying machine. And then we also have the button activating both sides so that if the elevator is at the bottom and we want to call it to the top, we can do that. Flush piston doors are fun, but what happens when you go to exit and there's a mob on the other side? Well, you could use glass, but then you'd see the sticky pistons. With this design, you can cover up the sticky pistons with solid blocks and then have a 2x2 area of transparent blocks like glass or iron bars that you can see through so you won't get surprised by those creepers anymore. How am I going to get across this river to my bed? How am I going to hide the path to my bed? What we have here is some double piston extenders underneath the dirt, and I'll freeze the game so that we can open this up and show what's going on here. So there's a piston extender on this side, piston extender on that side, just pushes the blocks up by 2. And then we have water sources under here and in these waterlogged stairs so that this will all fill back in with water sources. And then there's an observer under this dirt block so that when we hoe it, and then when this turns back into a dirt block, either naturally or by jumping on it, observer detects it again and retracts. And you're going to want to do some terraforming around here to make it a little bit more realistic. Add in some, seagrass there. Is going to be gone. Next, we have a little villager blacksmith here, and we don't really need to add anything visual, but this sounds really boring. I hear the campfire and the villager going, "Rah, rah, rah." Let's add some sounds. All we have is an anvil that's being pushed up on a clock here. Now an anvil cannot be pushed upwards. So we need to start with this extended and then be pushing the anvil as it's a falling block. We just want to make sure that we have a block above it to stop it. Because if we are shooting that up, not only is it going to take longer to drop down and actually make the sound of it falling, but then the anvil has a chance to get damaged and eventually will break. In this case, though, it's never going to fall that far so that it can take any damage, so this can go on indefinitely. Those are just a few ideas that you can use redstone for your decoration. I guess you could argue that some of these have a purpose, like with the door and the lighting switch, if you're to use that light block swapper in a farm in order to be able to turn it on and off. However, these are mostly just meant to be pretty or cool things to impress your friends with, or just have some fun in your own single-player build. Whatever. It's up to you. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, down in the video description will be that world download, so you can check out each one of these for yourself and mess around with them. Maybe grab a schematic, learn how to rebuild it in your own world. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.